Donald Trump is president because he convinced the last group of undecided voters that he was more focused on prices,
Hmm.
on inflation, and on people's everyday lives. And then he convinced those same voters that the vice president was distracted on a lot of
Yeah.
issues. And so I think what that election tells us is that people right now are less worried about how you describe yourself, Democrat, Republican,
Hmm.
etc., and more about what you're talking about and how focused you are on their everyday concerns.
Welcome to another episode of At Our Table with Jamie Harrison. And today I'm excited that Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky has pulled up a seat. Governor, welcome to our table. Welcome to South Carolina.
Thanks for having me.
It is so good to see you, Governor. And the ground rules for our discussion today: straight talk, family talk, all honesty, all heart. And I'm looking forward to just having that family talk with you about where we are as a party, where we're going, what do we need to do in order to stop the nightmare that we're seeing right now in our country. But I want to start off first. Recently, there have been some tragedies in Kentucky.
Yeah.
How's everything? What's going on at home? And is there a way that any of us can be helpful?
Well, we've been through a lot. Since I've become governor, not only have we gone through the pandemic, but we have had 14 federally declared disasters. Somehow we just keep getting hit over and over and over. And so my heart's going out to Texas right now,
Yeah.
too, after seeing that tragedy. We've had our worst tornadoes, we've had our worst flooding, we've had more tornadoes and more flooding. Just this year alone, 3 federally declared disasters and one that we've applied for. The most recent was tornadoes that went through London and Somerset, Kentucky, took 19 lives.
Mm.
Basically, an F4 tornado that ripped through a neighborhood. And this is one where you had 2 blocks where no one's alive
Wow.
anymore. And then a shooting just a couple days ago. This is July when we're taping this. It doesn't appear to be random, but still outside of a church and just tough. So the people of Kentucky are hurting, but we're strong.
Yep.
We always get back up and we do it together. And when this seemingly divided world, I've gotten to see such incredible unity, especially after these natural disasters. It always restores my faith in humanity because I've now probably stood next to 100+ people that are looking at what used to be their home or used to be their business and saying, where do I start? And 12 people always show up and say, why don't you start with us?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's those moments in which people realize it's not about Democrats or Republicans.
right.
It's not about black or white. It's just about being your brother and your sister's keeper.
That's right.
And being there.
It's that idea of the golden rule that you love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
In the parable of the Good Samaritan that says everyone's your neighbor. You know, that Samaritan helped lift somebody up, didn't kick them while they're down,
Yep.
didn't know that person ahead of time. And that's what you see after all these natural disasters. And so what I've always tried to push is that those good people that we are in the toughest of times, let's apply it to the other days too.
Yeah. One of the things that I hope is that a little of that will infect the folks in Washington, D.C. to understand that.
We can pray and hope.
Yeah, it just hurts my heart. I was, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, I was working for Jim Clyburn in Congress at the time. I was the ED of the House Dem Caucus. And I thought that was going to be a moment in which you would see Democrats and Republicans come together to do everything that they could. Because again, when these storms hit, they don't care about your political affiliation, who you voted for in the last election, but the people impacted just want help.
And the federal government needs to be there for
Yes.
those people. Lately, I'm hearing why should we spend so much of, quote, our money coming out of federal officials? Those are all our taxpayer dollars.
Amen to that.
And I think the American people would agree that the federal government being there for you at your darkest moment, where through no fault of your own, a hurricane, a tornado, flooding has torn through your communities.
Yeah.
And the irony of all of it to me is Trump's FEMA on the ground has done a good job in Kentucky.
Yeah.
They have bettered their customer service. We're not getting nearly as many complaints. They're getting a lot of money through individual assistance out to families, especially after flooding. It's actually a credit to his administration. And it seems to be the thing that they want to undo or unwind. Hopefully, him seeing it personally,
I hope so.
has an emotional impact, because we need FEMA for that emergency response. You know, we're as good as anybody on it, but when FEMA comes in, they can surge those extra resources. We need all of the National Weather Service positions filled, because even if it hasn't impacted a forecast yet, it will.
It will.
And I've been able to save an extra 1,000+ people in some of these, knowing when the floodwaters were coming and pre-positioning the boats and the helicopters. And then we need the federal government to step in and help our cities and counties that'll go bankrupt if they're not there. And one thing we haven't seen is that public assistance, really since February, that helps out Laurel County, where London, Kentucky is, Pulaski County, where Somerset is. Both of those counties went 80+% for the president, but he hasn't approved public assistance that would help them as a county government since that tornado.
Well, let's hope that people in Washington will wake up, and the president will understand that this is something that, again, it's not about partisanship. It's just about helping people.
Amen.
You know, public service is something that is not new to you or your family. I mean, it runs in your family. For folks who don't know you that well, give us a little sense of your political background, at again, the lifeblood of the Beshears, which is about public service. It's about helping people and standing up and leading. I'm sure a lot of folks would love to hear a little more about you.
So I grew up in a political family. My dad, who's an amazing human being.
Yes, he is.
And my mom, who is as tenacious as anyone I know, have dedicated most of their lives to public service. When I was born, my dad was a state rep. When I was 2 to 6, he was attorney general. When I was 6 to 10, he was lieutenant governor. He was this shooting star. And then he lost a governor's election to a candidate that had this consultant named James Carville. It was James Carville's first big breakthrough win. And the funny part now is James and I are friends.
Yeah.
Like, he crushed the dreams of Steve Beshear, and I was a 10-year-old during that election figuring out how my dad, Superman, could not have won. But I tell you, one of the most telling moments of who my dad is he'd always dreamed of this. I didn't grow up with these dreams. He'd always dreamed of this. And on election night, when his dreams are crushed, he spent the whole night sitting next to me, telling me it was going to be okay. I mean, what an amazing dad. So growing up, having watched this, I ran for everything in high school and in middle school, and I lost all of them. If there were 3 people running, I'd come in 5th. and I think the problem was I was doing it because I thought I was supposed to, not because there was a driving why to do it. And so if you fast forward 20 years after that loss, it's 2007. I met my wife working in a law firm in D.C., doing nothing political. We moved back to Kentucky. Dad and I are trying to convince Jerry Abramson, the then mayor of Louisville, and anybody else we can to run against a very wounded Republican incumbent governor. And at one point, when we can't get anybody to run, my dad calls me and he says, "I think I'm going to do it." And I say, "Well, wait a minute. I remember how crushed you were in 1987, lost an election in 96 against McConnell. Aren't you afraid of losing again?" And I remember him saying, clear as day, "I know what losing's like. I'd like to feel what winning feels like." And I remember hanging up the phone, going in and telling my wife he's running and he's going to win because he's not afraid of losing. And so his campaign started, and his entire Louisville organization was me and my wife. 30-year-old lawyer, and she was working in city government. I got to watch him, though, govern during special times. President Obama passes the Affordable Care Act. He gets to expand Medicaid, and I'm standing in an elevator with him when the door opens and a woman walks in and bursts into tears. And she looks at him and says, "I'm alive today because of you."
Wow.
She could not get her cancer treatments. They called that a pre-existing condition, and it kicked her off. But because of what President Obama was able to get through, and having a Democratic governor that would expand Medicaid and the rest, she was alive. And so when I had that moment, and then the birth of my kids, and I looked at both of them, they're a year and 3 days apart. I would not encourage that to any of your listeners. But when I looked at them, I asked myself, am I doing everything in my power to create a better world for them?
Yeah.
Is simply continuing my legal career and then maybe being a little more comfortable, is that enough? And my answer was no. So as my dad's term being governor was ending, I ran for attorney general. One, loved that job, but then I had my own Republican incumbent governor that was calling people names,
Yep.
tried to illegally cut the pensions of every teacher, police officer, firefighter, social worker, every state, city, and county worker in my state. I sued him. We won. He tried to illegally cut the budgets of our universities. And then he just wasn't an example that you could put your kids in front of the TV and at least they say, that's a governor.
Yeah.
I took a close look at that race. And then I had a call where my pollster said I had to do it. And I said, wait a minute, I'm looking at the numbers. What do you mean? And he said, Andy, you are Kentucky's Luke Skywalker. You are our last and only hope. And I once told that story to President Biden, and he looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, one, I know Mark Hamill well. You should tell.
Really?
Yes, you should tell Mark that. We should make sure to connect the two of you all.
Okay.
So that because he would love to hear that. I know you also have your own podcast.
I do. The Andy Beshear podcast.
I mean, look at that name. Why the hell didn't I come up with the Jamie Harrison podcast? But in your podcast, you ask your guests a consistent question is, what is your why?
Yes.
So what is your why, Andy Beshear? What keeps you going, Governor?
The why is so important.
Yeah.
And as Democrats, we haven't done it well in a
Yes.
long time. We're really good about the what. Remember in that last election, the vice president was pressured to put out all those big position papers, something that President Trump was not pressured to do, and then grilled about the tiniest detail in it. So we're very good at the sub-point 3, bullet point 2, I, but we rarely talk about what drives us to make decisions. For me, it's my faith. It's that golden rule and parable of the Good Samaritan. The end of that parable of the Good Samaritan is Jesus looking at the lawyer and saying, go and do likewise. It's not just a story we're supposed to emulate. It's an instruction that we are supposed to be there for our fellow human being. And so a whole lot of why I make decisions is based on my faith. So you remember during my reelection, my legislature passed every terrible bill they could so that I'd veto it. And then they could run nasty commercials on it. And they passed one of the nastiest anti-LGBTQ bills that I had ever seen. And I vetoed it, knowing that I would see $10 million of negative, nasty commercials out of it. But when I did, I explained my why. I said, the Bible teaches me that all children are children of God. So I'm going to stick up for these kids. And you know what? I didn't lose a point. Not one. We won one re-election by more than the first one.
And I want people to understand this. This is Ruby Red Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right? Ruby Red Kentucky.
People respect conviction.
Exactly right.
And even if they disagree with you, if you can explain your why, you create that grace and space to for them to say, I might not agree with you, but I know you're doing what you think is right. But the other part of that, though, is the next day, you got to be announcing the new jobs.
Yep.
You got to be opening the new medical clinic that saves people their drives. You got to be opening that new road that saves them 10 minutes each way. What's the next thing on public safety you can do so people feel safer in their community? How are you making sure that education is better? You can stand up for all these convictions, but people need to know that the vast majority of your time, you're doing things that lift everybody up.
Yeah.
Because there ain't no such thing as a red or a blue job. A job's just good for everybody.
Well, and Governor, I think something that was unique about you during that period, you could tell that wasn't something that you poll tested, right? It was something that was here.
It was real.
It was real. And I don't know if it's about growing up in the South, but I think that is something that we need to find and bottle and give to people in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, in this YouTube, TikTok world, you got to be authentic. You got to be you. And this is me. And for me, the pandemic hit and I did an update every day for a year and a half without missing one day. So people saw me, the good, the bad. I had a very embarrassing moment with Tupac Shakur. But they saw who I am and they saw that I cared. By the way, that story.
Yeah.
is
Yeah, because I want to hear what that story is.
So it is early on in the pandemic. President Trump has already had the call with governors where he tells them to shut it down. I was
Yeah.
on that call.
Yeah.
He was the person who gave the instruction. And so I tell people, apply for unemployment insurance if you need it. And so I remember somebody said, we had somebody apply under the name Tupac Shakur. And so I go out and I'm indignant and I say, I can't believe at this time that where people need help, that people are filing these false claims. Except there was someone in Lexington, Kentucky, who worked in a restaurant whose name was Tupac Shakur. So what I did that night is I called him.
Yeah.
Because his governor just run over him in a press conference, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
I told him, I was fully responsible. And then I went out the next day in the same press conference and told everybody I was wrong and what I'd done was wrong. But he took it with grace. And I think it's just that lesson that if you are real with people, that they can accept a mistake or two, but you got to be open and honest. You got to be you.
Yeah, and you got to be able to laugh at yourself. You got to be able to critique yourself, and
that's not the way I thought I'd make Jimmy Kimmel.
No. Well, one other thing that I've noticed during your tenure, again, you picking issues that most pollsters in Washington, D.C. would say, oh, you need to stay far away from that. You're in Kentucky. You don't need to touch this at all. Reproductive health issues. And I know that's a big issue for you. How did you find, and you stood up to your legislature on those particular issues. Tell us about the fight that you had there and how you decided to make your stand.
People don't like extremism.
Yeah.
Even if they believe strongly in an issue, they don't like extremism. And there's a little bit of gray in everything. So when you look at Kentucky's laws, we have the most draconian abortion laws of just about anywhere in the country. No weeks, no exceptions. Victims of rape and incest either have to travel to another state or give birth to their rapist's baby. That means rapists in Kentucky have more rights than their victims. And what we saw in Kentucky is people were really uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Even those that had been out there on this issue were saying, wait, that goes a little too far. And then we had a really brave young woman in Hadley Duval, who's one of the most special, strongest people that I've ever met. And Hadley was willing to share her story, which was a rough story of her stepfather starting to abuse her, I believe at 10, becoming pregnant around 12, ultimately miscarrying. But I remember her stepping forward and saying, I want to tell this story because there are other me's.
Yeah.
All around the country. Most important conversation I think I ever had with her, and she remains a friend, was she'd filmed that commercial that a lot of people have seen now from 2023. And I said, Hadley, if you're doing this for me, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it for you, if this is a platform that you want to have, then we want to support you with everything that we have. And to be able to speak at the DNC last year, right after her, to be able to sit backstage together was something pretty special. I still remember when they gave the call, because everybody tries to negotiate their DNC moment. How long is it? Everybody's heard President Obama's story and tries to do that. And I remember them calling and saying, you're on the first night. And I said, And they said, but you're in prime time. I said, okay. And then they said, you can speak right after Hadley Duval. And I said, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it. I mean, to be able to just to be able to be there with her and to see that courage that she had. And I remember that we were all a little bit worried that she was going to go back to her small college and how people were going to respond. They made her homecoming queen.
Wow.
They saw her strength. They rallied around her, again, in Kentucky, lifting her up. And this tells us that there are leaders everywhere. You don't have to have been a party chair or a candidate or a governor. I mean, I believe that her impact already and what she's going to continue to do is going to change the world.
I think we all can be leaders, and I hope the American people understand that. It's not about the Avengers coming to save us, right? We all have that
would
power.
be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yes.
but we all have that power to step up and to lead. And regardless of the title, it doesn't really matter about the title. It's about what's in you and that passion and wanting to do better. Governor, one of the things that I would love to get your perspective on, I mean, listen, you ran one hell of a reelect. And I remember I was at the DNC and we worked with your team to make sure that we worked with the state party to get resources and all. And you really were able to find some magic there in Kentucky. And then, we thought that we would have taken that momentum from your race and some of the other races in the midterm and actually roll into 2024, but we didn't. Now that's not to say that it was a total loss, right? We still had in the 2024 election great success down ballots in many of the battleground states. In North Carolina, where we won the governor, the lieutenant governor, attorney general, Supreme Court race. In Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona and Nevada, we still won all of the Senate races.
Governors did not lose a seat. Democratic governors
There
in
you go.
2024.
There we go. And so what do you think went wrong in 2024? And what do you think as a party we need to change?
Well, I think that Donald Trump is president because he convinced the last group of undecided voters that he was more focused on prices, on inflation, and on people's everyday lives. And then he convinced those same voters that the vice president was distracted on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And so even that last ad, I think was more about distraction, saying, I'm focused on you. She's talking about folks in prison.
Yeah.
And so I think what that election tells us, and even the primary in New York, is that people right now are less worried about how you describe yourself, Democrat, Republican, et cetera, and more about what you're talking about and how focused you are on their everyday concerns.
Yeah.
I think we think people are more political than they are. That when people wake up in the morning, they're not thinking about their party and they're not thinking about the next election. They're thinking about their job and whether they can afford groceries that week or to go on vacation that year. They're thinking about their next doctor's appointment, and pretty soon they're going to have to drive a lot further to get there. They're thinking about the roads and bridges they drive each day. Gretchen Whitmer has that one right. It's very important to people. They're thinking about the school they drop their kids off at, and they're thinking about whether they feel safe in their communities. That's where we as Democrats have lived in the past when we're successful, and that's where we have to live in the present. And I believe we've got a wide open road to try to re-earn the faith of the American people pretty quickly, because Donald Trump's breaking every promise he made.
Yeah.
He said he'd bring down prices, and what are tariffs doing? They're raising prices. He said he wouldn't touch Medicaid, and he is going to gut it more than any other president in my lifetime. Rural hospitals are going to close. Healthcare workers are going to get laid off. And so that lane of being the party, the people, the public servants that truly care about you and then get results is right there.
But and one of the things, though, I do want to highlight, because, I mean, in the end of the day, when you take a look at what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were able to get done legislatively, right? I mean, they poured billions of dollars into states to rebuild roads, healthcare, bringing down the costs of insulin and all of these things. So, I mean, really on healthcare, on education, wiping out millions of student loan debt for so many working people. But what was lost in the translation? Because there was stuff that they got done legislatively, but it seems like people didn't feel like. I
would say the results.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is the signing of a bill in a rose garden isn't real to people anymore. Because just like the announcement of potential new jobs isn't real because people haven't filled them yet. And so it's not, here's as a governor, the best example I can give you. An announcement of new jobs is the hope.
Yes.
The groundbreaking is the progress. But the one that people make fun of the most is the most important. It's the ribbon cutting with the giant scissors. Why? Because the jobs are there. And we've got to make sure that we're showing people that the tangible examples of how this is bettering their life. We got to get dirt on our boots, and we got to get out in these communities and just say, not only did we pass this law, but this facility and these 300 jobs happened because of it. So we've got a county called Henderson in Kentucky, former coal mining county. I maybe won it by a point or two in 2019. It had been Democrat and then was moving Republican pretty fast. About 6 months before the election in 2023, I opened the world's cleanest, greenest recycled paper mill, Green Jobs in Henderson, Kentucky. 350 jobs, they paid $40 an hour.
Wow.
I won Henderson by double digits in that next year. Why? Because it wasn't just, a promise. It wasn't just legislation that should create jobs. They were right there. Like their community was transformed. 350 people had the ability to provide more opportunity for their family. So that's where we've got to get to, the results. And we've got to make sure that we don't get in our own way. And what I mean by that is we've got to be able to look at things that maybe we should have done better. And as we go forward, make sure that we are not tripping ourselves up. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite programs that the Biden administration passed was the abandoned well capping program. These are abandoned oil and gas wells that are pumping methane up into the environment, right? It's causing global warming. Capping them is the only program I've ever seen where the environmentalists and the industry were both for it.
Yeah.
So the program first comes out, we cap more than anybody else in the nation, and then they double the regulations for the second round. And what happens? It almost all stops. We're doing a bunch of archaeological studies.
Yeah.
But we're not capping those wells. And I think when you look at the BEAD program, it's the same. This is internet for everybody. One of the most popular things, but we don't have 1 inch of fiber in the ground right now. We created so many rules. We had to get the subcontractor, the subcontractor, the subcontractor before we ever got any money. And to this day, all the money is still sitting with the federal government when the states are supposed to get it out. So we've got to be effective.
Yeah.
I like to think we got to be the common sense, common ground, get stuff done type of party.
So, Governor, you are you're almost now about to become the chair of the Democratic Governors Association. What do you plan to do as the leader of the DGA in probably this one of the most important midterm election cycles that we've seen?
Yeah, my first job is to win a lot of races. We've got 36 races next year. We have some important incumbents like Katie Hobbs and Tina Kotek that we'll be supporting. J.B. Pritzker is running for re-election. Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, and we're still waiting on hearing from some. We've got some legacies to protect, like Gretchen Whitmer, who is now term limited. And then we are going to have the opportunity to expand our map, I believe, in places that people aren't even thinking of.
I hope South Carolina is one of them.
This big, ugly bill, when it closes down your rural hospital, was your second largest employer behind the school system, when it has the largest budget, meaning the largest amount of dollars flowing through that community, and suddenly, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, whether you're on private insurance or Medicaid, you got to drive hours just to see that same doctor when your restaurants are closing because there are fewer people that are working that can go to them, when your bank is losing all those different customers, when you're seeing it reverberate in rural America, so that this president could give a tax break to a lot of people who live in urban America. I think we're going to have some real opportunities.
Well, listen, I've been the biggest fan of the DGA and this new version of the DGA and the crop of Democratic governors that we have across the nation. I mean, when you talk about the bench of the Democratic Party and how deep it is,
it's a lot of talented folks.
There's so much talent in the DGA with our Democratic governors. Now, the one thing though is somebody said, "Well, Jamie, what critique would you have of governors?" And I would not say of you, because you have been fantastic in terms of you've been a governor that has worked very closely with your Democratic state party. I mean, Coleman Eldridge, who's the state party chair, he loves you and loves working with you and your office and your team. I can't say that about all of our Democratic governors. And so one of the things I would ask as a former DNC chair and as a former state party chair, I think for the legacy of our Democratic governors, but I also think for the strength of our party at large, Like if we could figure out how to motivate our governors a little more to say, not only are you the heads of your state, but you are also the head of your state parties. And the state parties so desperately need our Democratic governors right now.
Well, I think what you see is in different states out there that have more Democrats in positions like U.S. Senate or Congress, sometimes you can have somebody who's been there a while. The interesting thing about running for governor is you got to put together a big enough network to where if you've got that leader that's been there for longer, you also have your own group that it took to get you elected now, and how you marry the two. To make sure that we can get the most people elected, I think is a very good critique. Probably a little bit hard to do. I don't have that challenge in Kentucky because we all have to stick together. But I think what you see is governors can change the map.
They can.
We need to win the House. I hope Democrats take a run at the Senate. But if we want future elections in 28 or 32 to be decided by more than 5 states, we've got to elect some new Democratic governors in 26 in these other states. They're in a more effective position that you're there every day, that you can build out that Democratic Party and make a state more competitive.
And right now in the South, I mean, we only have you, and in North Carolina we have Josh Stein, and I would love to see coming out of 2026 that we add 2 or 3 more to the mix. I mean, it would be fantastic if we could.
I think we're going to have some competitive ones. We're seeing candidates start to announce in different places. Georgia has had a number. We've got a candidate or 2 already in Florida. And so I'm excited to
Will
see
Boyd, who I've been working with in Alabama. I mean, and it's important. And, sometimes you may not win the first time, but when you start to give people a little hope and some fight.
And Presley had a good run in Mississippi. That didn't end up as close as we thought, but the opportunity was there. And so for me as head of DGA, I'm looking at these races knowing that we have to invest. And I'm from a place like you are that hasn't seen enough investment on the Democratic side in far too long. And what that's allowed is a demonization of the Democratic Party. I'll still have people stand up and say, how can you call yourself a Christian and be a Democrat? And I'll say, because I believe in empathy and compassion. I believe in acceptance over judgment. I believe people should see a doctor when they're sick. Guess who else believes that? Jesus, who says it in the Bible. And so trying to make sure that we have the opportunity to push back against that and say, wait a minute, you don't really think the other half of your state are bad people. These are just the messages that are being pushed down on you.
And that's why you can't cede anything to the other side. You have to fight for everything. Even when the deck may be stacked against you, it's important to fight. It's important to give people hope.
And it's always that balance for me in state about recruiting candidates and wanting a candidate in as many of the elections as we can. But I've been through losses with my family, and just making sure we're being honest with people too, because that's a human being that deserves to have the information in front of them and to know what they're getting into.
Well, I have to ask about 2028 because everybody's asking about 2028, and I just saw recently your interview on Meet the Press, and I was like, damn it, I wanted to ask that first.
I give the same answer every time, except sometimes I use different synonyms for the same thing. So I'll give you that same answer.
Well, I mean, people, some of the press have already called me with like, Governor Beshear is going to be in South Carolina. And as you know, South Carolina was the first in the nation. And I thank Joe Biden for making that happen. And I hope, and I'm going to be fighting like hell to make sure it's still the first in the nation in 2028. But folks here are hearing rumors that you are considering 2028. And so I'm going to ask you directly, what do you think about 2028? Are you going to throw your hat in the ring? And can we have you here for a few fish fries here in South Carolina?
So I'm in South Carolina for this trip for 3 reasons. The AFL-CIO asked me to headline their convention. I'm going to the Georgetown Democratic dinner, which is normally Blue Sunday. It's a Blue Thursday this year. So thank them for that. And my son Will has a baseball tournament in Charleston. So I get to be dad for the rest of the weekend. This was something that years ago I would have told you, that I wouldn't ever consider.
Yeah.
But I don't want to leave a broken country to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so where I am right now is trying to be a reasonable voice that can bring not only Democrats back together, but I'm willing to throw out the formula about focusing on people's everyday needs to get Republicans and independents doing it too. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes.
If we could make some things nonpartisan and just move ahead on especially people's everyday lives. And next year, I've got to give my all to the DGA. And if I do my job right, there'll be a lot more speculation of a lot more people that are out there. We break through in a state, and that name will immediately be up there. And that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for that energy. And so, after that, if at that point, I believe that I'm somebody that can help heal this country to get us past this us versus them, then it's something I'll consider.
Yeah. And regardless of if it's you or anybody else, what do you think are the
But
qualities?
let me say
Oh,
this.
Yeah.
If I think somebody else in the future
Yeah.
is a person who can heal this country, I have no problem getting behind them. I care much more about my country, this country, than any political future. And it's just that I've had the pledge on my mind and my heart a lot lately. I mean, the idea that we pledge our allegiance to the country and to the flag and never to an individual. And in that pledge, we pledge to keep it indivisible. Yet we see a president right now that tries to divide us every single day. And so, I have a responsibility at least to speak out about trying to move past where we are right now.
Well, Governor, I think having you in that mix will be really, really important.
I appreciate the encouragement.
I really do. I think your perspective, I think the values, I think the fight that you bring are all those type of things. Now, that's my opinion about what the qualities are of a future president. What do you believe are some of the qualities that we need in our next commander-in-chief, in the next person that is going to be the head of our party? Because I want, every person that is running, I'm going to press them on it. Not only are you going to be president of the United States, but you will become the functional head of the Democratic Party.
I think it's got to be somebody who can bring people together.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the country, it's about bringing together Democrats, Republicans, and independents, making sure we're worried less about left or right and more about moving forward. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we increase wages that helps everybody live the better life? How do we undo the big ugly bill so you can see a doctor in your community? Where are the roads and bridges out there that if we did that next project, we'd save lives? What's that step instead of dismantling the Department of Education that we can do to improve public education all over the country? Because if we do that enough, we won't see these attacks on it and attempts to move dollars elsewhere. As head of a party, it's got to be within Democrats, bringing them together, recognizing that we don't all have to have the exact same views, and no one really does. We try to put everybody in a box, but we're all unique children of God. We've all gone through different experiences. I'm somebody who's been through leadership in the pandemic, helped rebuild after tornadoes and floods, lost a friend in a mass shooting. So those are all different experiences that I have that may make me think differently about one issue or another.
Who's your favorite president?
Oh, well, I'm from Kentucky, Lincoln. Illinois claims him, but he was born in Kentucky. And during that pandemic, when my capital was empty, and I was walking around, and that was just a period of immense pressure, trying to do everything we could to save as many lives as we could. Right outside of my office is the statue of Lincoln. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what those days must have felt like for him, worrying about the country falling apart, like us getting a list of how many people had died that day, probably every single day, and then going out and needing to communicate to our people about what was going on and hopefully create hope in a very difficult time.
Yeah. Well, we talked about how deep the Democratic Governors Association is in terms of the talent. Who's your best governor buddy? Who's the person that you often call and just to chat with?
I'm going to make a lot of people mad if I don't name him. Wes Moore and I talk a lot.
Yeah, and Wes was just here.
Good friend.
Yeah.
We get to hang out a decent amount. He's come to Derby. I have yet to make the Preakness.
I haven't either. I've been to the Derby, and thank you for the invitation.
I was headed to the Preakness We had a golf tournament, big PGA tournament in Louisville, and Scotty Scheffler got arrested that morning, and so I had to take a detour as governor and work to address that one. But he certainly won. Josh Shapiro and everybody I've been in AG with, we're all close. Mara Healy and I are really, really close.
Yeah.
We talk regularly and about all types of
She's
things.
fantastic.
We've known each other so long. She gave one of my kids a swimming lesson.
Wow.
At one point when we were all at a retreat together. Janet Mills and I have known each other for a long time. Josh became both Joshes, Josh Stein and Josh Shapiro became AGs right after me. Josh Green and I have gotten to know each other really well. Talk about a really talented person. To be from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And to be accepted as the governor of Hawaii and to have an incredible approval rating, just shows what a great guy he is.
I love Josh Green so much, and he's such a talent that, and most people in mainland don't know who he is, but he is such a talented guy, and I really, really love him.
And of course, you got Laura Kelly in Kansas that has been such a good leader for us this year. And we really change people's thoughts about where Democrats can win when the chair and the vice chair of the Democratic Governor Association is the governor of Kansas and Kentucky.
One of the things that the reason why my podcast is called At Our Table is because in my family, many of the big decisions and some of the most colorful and interesting conversations were at our table, at the dinner table on Sunday, at the dinner table, in the evening. My grandfather would get home from work and we'd sit there and talk and eat. But sometimes some really colorful conversations would happen. Sometimes you would get a little too big for your britches, as my grandfather would say. And then he would say, boy, I think you need to sit your ass down. And so part of the honor of my grandfather at our table and those discussions is we give every episode a sit your ass down award. So my question to you, Governor,
so this is your grandfather, not Nick Cannon on The Masked Singer. Okay, I gotcha.
My question to you is, who would you present the Sit Your Ass Down award to somebody who needs to get themselves grounded again? Like, just calm down, pump the brakes a little bit, calm down.
I would say everybody who voted for that big, ugly bill deserves to sit down, and they don't have anything that they should be saying, because what they did is put their loyalty to a president and a party above the people that they serve. I mean, this is going to hammer rural America. It is going to hit their constituents more so than any bill I've ever seen, and they all knew it. But they didn't care. They'd rather see this president smile than to stop something devastating for people that they know.
They were excited to get their red MAGA hats that he personally signed. I actually saw that in some of the reporting that, when he was twisting arms and he said, and I'll get you some, these hats that are made in China anyway, but we'll get you some of these Chinese red hats. And I put my signature on it.
Look at every governor, every Republican governor that didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
Whose hospitals are going to close,
quiet as church mice,
and the impact that's going to have. I mean, it's a $1 billion plus hit on the Kentucky economy. But at least I was out there speaking out. Why? Not because I'm a Democratic governor, but because I'm the governor of Kentucky. My job is to serve those people. That's every senator's job and every congressman and woman's job too.
I think about here in South Carolina and some of the energy grants that we are going to lose as a result of the cuts, the Medicaid cuts and all. I mean, it's really sad.
And even the clean energy credits that were cut, those are big projects. Those are construction jobs and long-term jobs. And what I've learned is people don't care if it is a green job or not, because the green that's most important to them is the one that helps put food on their table.
Well, Governor, is there anything that you're working on that you particularly want to just let folks know about? Of course, you have your podcast, and I'm encouraging everybody to go to the Andy Beshear podcast. The governor has a great podcast. I hope I can come on someday.
I look forward to it.
But anything else that you're working on that you want to just inform
We're
folks?
proud of a lot of things going on in Kentucky. Under Democratic leadership, we've broken every economic development record, from private sector investment, new jobs. We've broken our exports record twice. We've got setting records for how many people are working, how many jobs are filled, and the size of our workforce. I think we've proven that you can be pro-job, pro-business, and pro-union all at the same time, that they don't have to clash. But I think what maybe I'm most proud of, because so many Kentuckians from so many different backgrounds have worked so long towards it, are the major decreases in drug overdose deaths we're seeing, that we're actually finally making real progress against this epidemic. We've had 3 straight years of decreases. This last year was over 30% decrease.
Wow.
This is just something that I don't want to leave to my kids. It arose in our generation. We should end it in our generation. And we're seeing some of those gains all over the country. I thank God for that. But I also thank everybody working in recovery and treatment and our law enforcement, just everybody out there who again, put everything else aside and said, let's do everything we can to save and repair lives.
Well, Governor, thank you for all the really transformational work that you're doing in Kentucky, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We really, really appreciate it. You have been a tremendous leader and a role model for many of us, particularly in the South. You've been somebody that we have looked up to and that we're really trying to emulate your success and what you have been able to do and figure out that magic sauce that we can bottle up and replicate all across the South. But Governor, I just want you to know that we appreciate your friendship, your leadership, and so admire how you have led with your conviction and your values.
Well, you get a lot of heavy hitters on this podcast, so thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for being at our table. If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Pixel Plus, YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts. To be the first to know who will be at our table next, be sure to subscribe to our Substack on atourtablepodcast.com. At Our Table with Jamie Harrison is a production of Vision Blue Media. Our founding executive producers are Jason Hayter and Jamie Harrison. Our producers are Kyle Kelly and Emily Harrell. Our content consultants are Ernie Grigg and Clay Middleton. Our digital communications are led by Celie Riccio. Neil Rossini of FWRV LLP provides production legal. Wade Sellers, Kyle Kelly, Jay Matheson, Jeremy Dickerson, and Adrian Williams are our field production team. Alana Davis is our intern. Title sequence by Tom Hunt. Our theme song, Blonde Gone, is written by Dewey and published by Alibi Music Library. Special thanks to Crystal Spain, Jay Parmalee, and the South Carolina Democratic Party. Very special thanks to Governor Beshear and his team. I'm Jamie Harrison, and I look forward to another conversation at our table.